Hello and welcome to the Facing Your Fears program, Turning Fear into Courage. We are on chapter 33, which is Success in Spirituality. And I love this chapter because I do think heart, soul, spirit, all of that kind of energy is really coming forward for most of us on the planet, or a lot of us on the planet. Things where no one ever talked about mediums or spirituality or meditation. They're all mainstream now. And when I was re-looking at this chapter, I noticed that Heather Lawn, who was Reverend Heather Lawn, used to rent space for me. She's passed on now, but she was a medium, an astrologist, a channeler. I mean, she was just an amazing woman. And she wrote the beginning of this chapter for me, talking about 15 years ago, the challenges that were coming onto our planet and how we were going to need to expand our consciousness, expand our awareness, expand our ability to handle things in order to survive or thrive, maybe to be the best version of ourselves. And to have that written 15 years ago, and to realize now that people are realizing that they do talk about coming from your heart and soul. They do talk about meditation and going to channelers or mediums or things that were so outside the box before. So now if you think of spirituality and that we are being challenged to accept more of our own issues, accept more of what's going on in the planet, and actually we're being asked to have more compassion towards people who may think differently. The only way we're going to survive as a species is to not make people our enemy, but to make it something where we want to understand. So let's look at that. And really, I want you to even imagine your heart and souls. I've said this before, there are brain cells in our stomachs and in our hearts. Our hearts do not guide us wrong. And all these years that people have been talking about, follow your passion and the money will come. It's so true. But we've been programmed. We've been programmed by our parents or by society. And if you think about it, our parents grew up decades before us. So their programming and their awareness was so much more limited than our awarenesses, than our children's awarenesses, and our grandchildren's awarenesses. So if we really look at it, we were being raised by, I was going to say like pro-magnum man or something, but somebody who was very limited, and their traumas, their beliefs, their fears were being passed on to us. And now, as parents or grandparents, we want to be conscious that we're not doing the same thing to our children or grandchildren. And I think as parents or grandparents, we sometimes pass on these fears that we have for these children. And yet, if you believe that your children are as strong or stronger or more aware than even you are, they can find their way. They can handle the challenges. They're probably more prepared than any of us. So taking a deep breath so that we can relax into being on this world, being on this planet, being with one another, connecting with our souls, connecting with our hearts. It's a process. And when we're living in the present, when we're with the here and now, we can definitely connect. So take a deep breath and just feel yourself connect to something, whether you can put your feet on the ground or you feel yourself on the chair that you're sitting on, or you can look, I have these beautiful plants or the trees outside or something that connects me to nature. I know I'm okay. And I want you to know right here and right now, you're okay. The things we fear about are all the future things, not what's going on right now. Right now, we're breathing, hopefully being able to talk, walk, whatever it might be that you enjoy doing. And so we don't want to be in fear. And then we come to the point that if we do things out of desire, it's so much stronger than doing it out of fear. Anything, any decision. So the big saying for the last few weeks is, I would like, you kind of talk to yourself, I would like. Incorporate that term into your being, because it's no longer keeping our parents happy, keeping the world happy. When we vibrate at a higher level, it helps everyone around us. And the only way we do that is by following our heart and soul. So many of us will look at our past, and that can cause us pain because we do hurt people along the way. We do make mistakes. we're human. So those things happen. But sometimes we play this game like, if only I had, let's say, stayed with my husband, or if only I had become a doctor, or any of these things that we can hold against ourselves and pretend like we made the wrong decision. If you play that out, most likely there would have been issues, or maybe not issues, but you wouldn't have been challenged to grow and to learn and to become the confident, competent person you are. I know if I had always been protected, I wouldn't be the strong person I am. If I had always been shown the way, I wouldn't have learned so much along the way. So you can play it out. That's one of the first questions in that chapter is think of a decision you made and think of how it would have played out if you had not made that decision, but you had basically stayed where you were, stayed with the company, stayed with the person, ignored that inner voice that said that's pushing you towards something. And then play it out and then decide maybe this was the right decision. Not so easy. We all don't take the easy route. And often the easy route stifles what we can really accomplish. The other one is to realize that all along the way, we had these, I don't know, guardian angels, human angels, people that helped us along the way so often. And to even just recognize that people that you may never see again helped you in situations that could have turned out worse than they did. I think about I was climbing Mount Whitney in one day and with a group of people, and I was being the one that said, "Oh, we don't have to camp at 8,000 feet. We can adjust while we're walking up to 14, whatever thousand feet it was." And I was so unprepared. I was so unprepared that I didn't have a headlamp when we started at 2 o'clock in the morning. So the very first half hour, I fell in the first river that I didn't see the rocks or slid off the rocks. So here I am, cold feet, wet socks, starting out climbing Mount Whitney. And then having not acclimated to the height and the altitude at 12,000 feet, I didn't feel that great. During the switchbacks, if any of you have done Mount Whitney, I'd say halfway up those switchbacks, I felt like there was an elephant on my chest. And I didn't know if it was a heart attack or pressure or what, but I ended up turning back and I didn't have my water with me. The person I was hiking with had all the water. And I turned back, told him I was turning back, and started back down the mountain and realized, first of all, I didn't know the way down. There weren't a lot of people going back down the mountain. And I had no water. And we'd already been hiking, I don't know, maybe 8 hours or something. I don't know, 7 or 8, like I can't remember exactly. And there was a very nice man at the campsite the day before where they were all camping who kept saying, "You can't do it in one day, don't do it in one day." And I was just hanging out with the group and saying, Don't listen to him, get away because he's just going to frighten you and you won't do the hike." And it turned out as I'm hiking down the mountain, he had stayed at 12,000 feet. When I got to 12,000 feet, I ran into this man that I said, stay away from. And he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I need to go back down the mountain." And he said, "Do you have water?" I said, "I have no water." And he had a filter and he filtered out these couple of bottles of water for me. I'm sure he saved my life and pointed me in the right direction and got me back down the trail with water. And so I think about how there are these little angels in our lives that give us direction, help us find our way. And I think back with my master's program, I was just trying to find out how to be a better mother because I wanted to have children and never thought about being a therapist. But a professor at the school kept saying, "Janet, you need to go in private practice. You just come to my office for a month. And if you don't like it at the end of the month, I'll not bug you anymore." So I said, okay, I'll do it. I loved it. And I didn't know I was going to love it so much. And so once I got that going, I never stopped, 40, now it's 42 years later. Thank you to her. So think back at people that have made this huge impression. I had a great father. He made a huge impression. I have the best kids and grandkids. I know we all think we have the best kids and grandkids, but they have taught me so much. And they're so much more aware than I am. And so much more conscious. I'm trying to keep up with them. I'm trying to keep up with them. So if you look at this whole spirituality and success, what if you have to give up something in order to get something better? And by giving up, I mean, give up the stuff that clutters your house. Give up a should of what you should do. Give up the pressure you put on yourself. Give up even those things that you're just always like, I have this motor that goes pushing you, pushing you, pushing you, and pushing others. What if you just let go, you let yourself be, and you just be a human being instead of a human doer? And what if that brings success in a way that you wouldn't even imagine? Sometimes when we give up things, we don't know what's going to come because we're without something and we think of how we can do it, without ever even imagining whatever new can come in, whatever new person, opportunity, learning experience, book you're going to write, whatever it might be that could come in because you have the space. We need more space in our lives. We need more time in nature. And if you're ever feeling disconnected from yourself, please just get out in nature and touch a tree or walk barefoot in the sand or the grass or something where you reground yourself and get back to nature, to that human being that we're supposed to, that it would be nice to be. And then if you look at anything that would help you with your spiritual growth, whether it's a class, a book, a podcast, a practice of meditation, a person that you admire that might help you along the way, this is a time to set a goal for anything like that, where I'm going to connect with even somebody like, Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield, or somebody who's a big in the field that you go, I'm going to go to one of their seminars. And the truth is, my first chapter in the Facing Your Fears, if you've been following along with me, is The Answers Lie Within. By connecting with these people, we take time to find those answers that are within us, and we can then create whatever success we want. And if you look at what success means to you, success to me means joy, happiness, a feeling of freedom. And I think it all happens on the inside. The outside stuff is not what's going to give us that sense of joy or freedom. It's how we feel, and safety, even safety. It all comes from the inside. To really breathe that in, how do you create that within yourself? Maybe you just allow it. What if it's always there, but those people with good intentions that were teaching us, the parents, the caregivers, the authoritarian figures, they came from their own fear and they didn't acknowledge that you always had it within you. So I'm going to say you've always had it within you. Just find your own answers. Take time with yourself. Take time walking in nature. Take time swimming in the ocean. Take time climbing the mountains. And what if every person out there is actually a gift? Whether it was the guy I said to get away from, and he's the one who helped me, or someone else in your life that might have been tough, but taught you something that you really needed to learn. It's all a gift. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Chapter 33, Success in Spirituality, Facing Your Fears, Turning Fear into Courage. Join us again for our next podcast.